The room should have been empty, but the air still moved like someone breathed behind the door. I pushed inside and the overhead light turned on by itself. The chair in the middle of the room rocked in a slow, steady motion. I had not touched it. The window was shut. The door closed behind me with a clean click, and the lock turned without my hand. My client, Marcus Hale, should have stood here with his laptop and his smug smile. Instead, his suitcase was gone, his samples were gone, and every wire I had run for him hung from the wall like torn veins. He had rented my workspace for a private pitch. He had promised a final payment that would cover 3 months of debt. He had not paid a single part of it. My phone vibrated again and again. The bank app showed my account dropped below zero. The pending transfer from Hale had been reversed. The note said canceled by sender. A late fee hit right after it. Then another. I heard the sound of my own breathing get sharp like I was running, but I stood still in his empty room. I stepped deeper and saw my invoice on the table, face up, neat and centered like it waited for me. Across it, in thick black ink, someone had written paid. Under that word was my signature. It matched my hand so well that my stomach turned. The date was tomorrow. The ink looked fresh, but the paper edges were dry. Beside it sat my personal notebook. I never brought it into client rooms. I kept it in my desk drawer under a lock because it had account numbers, loan papers, and my mother's hospice schedule. The notebook lay open to a page I had not written. It listed my home address, my door code, and my car plate. A simple line followed, calm and careful. You should stop pretending you are safe. I backed away and my heel hit something soft. I looked down and saw a strip of black fabric on the floor. It was my tie. I had worn it at my last court hearing for an old debt. I had left that tie at home on the back of a chair. The knot was still set. I bent down, touched it, and felt a damp spot like a fresh stain. The room smelled wrong, not like smoke, not like food. It smelled like a wet basement and metal. I found the source behind the curtain. A large plastic storage bin sat under the window. It had not been there last night. I knew what was in my room at closing. This bin was new. The lid was snapped tight, but the sides bulged as if something inside pressed outward. I forced the lid open with shaking hands. Inside lay a thick stack of printed photos, still glossy, still warm from a cheap printer. Every photo showed me, not from the street, not from far away, from inside my shop, inside my office, inside my home. One showed me asleep on my couch. One showed me counting cash at my desk. One showed me standing in the same doorway, my hand on the handle, taken seconds before I walked in. At the bottom of the bin was a small black camera with a red light on. It faced upward, aimed right at my face. I stared at it, and the red light blinked like an eye. A speaker crackled from somewhere in the room. I froze, not sure if the sound came from the camera or the walls. Then a familiar voice filled the air, low and close, as if he stood behind me. "You came fast," the voice said. "I told myself you would. I needed you to see it before you called anyone." I turned in a full circle. There was no one. The chair still rocked. The voice continued, calm and pleased. "I did not forget the bill. I chose not to pay it. I wanted your bank to bite you. I wanted you to feel small. You lived on hope, so I took that first." Then a soft laugh came through, slow and satisfied. "I watched you sign it," the voice said. "I watched you do everything." My phone rang in my hand. Unknown number. I did not answer. A message arrived instead, already opened on my screen like it had been waiting. It held a single file attached to it and a short line under the file name. "If you go to the police, you will bring them my gift. If you stay quiet, you will lose everything anyway. Choose." I stared at the forged invoice, at my own signature dated tomorrow, and I understood what he had built for me. Then the lock on the door clicked again, and this time it sounded like it opened from the outside. I walked out of the room with the camera still blinking behind me. The hallway lights flickered as I moved. My phone showed no signal for a few seconds, then it returned like nothing happened. I tried the unknown number back. It rang once, then stopped. I tried again. It did not ring at all. It went straight to silence, not even a voicemail prompt. I drove to the only place I could think of and sat in my car outside a police station. I opened the attached file from the message. It was a short video of me in my office. The angle came from above my desk like a ceiling corner. I watched myself lift a pen, smile in a tired way, and sign the invoice. I did not remember doing it. Then the video froze on my hand and zoomed in until the paper filled the screen. My signature looked perfect. I closed the file, and my hands shook so hard, I dropped my phone into my lap. Inside, I tried to explain it. The officer listened with flat eyes. He asked if anything was stolen. I said yes, my notebook, my keys, my privacy. He asked if I saw the person do it. I said no. I told him about the forged signature and the camera. He asked for proof the client placed it there. I showed him the invoice and the photos. He told me it looked like a civil matter. He told me to talk to a lawyer. He handed my papers back like they were dirty. I called my lawyer from the sidewalk. She opened my contract and went quiet. Then she pointed at a section I had skimmed when Hale pushed it across the table, smiling. It said arbitration only. It said venue in another state. It said I paid all fees if I lost. It said his company could assign the contract to a separate entity at any time. She searched the business name Hale used. It no longer existed. It had been dissolved 2 weeks before he booked my room. A new company had formed the next day with a similar name and a different address. The address was a mailbox service. I called the number Hale gave me. A recorded message said it had been disconnected. I emailed him. The message bounced back as undeliverable. I sent a demand letter to the address on his paperwork. The courier app updated with a photo of the delivered envelope sitting on a metal shelf. The shelf had dozens of other envelopes, all stacked and forgotten. I watched the update and felt my chest tighten. He had built a hole that swallowed paper. That night I returned to my office and changed every lock I could afford. I covered the window. I moved my laptop and my files into a back room. I sat in the dark and listened for movement in the walls. My mind kept circling one thought. Hale had not only taken money, he had walked through my life like he owned it. I decided I needed one small thing that was mine. Not a court case, not a threat, something quiet. I opened my computer and logged into the private vendor board used by people in my line of work. Hale had found me through that board. I wrote a short warning under my real name. I included his name, the company name, the invoice amount, and the reversal notice from the bank. I did not mention cameras or the video. I only wrote what I could prove. I clicked post. My screen refreshed. The warning appeared for 2 seconds, then it vanished. I searched for it. Nothing. I checked my profile. The post was gone and my account status showed suspended for harassment. My email chimed at the same time. A notice from the board admin said a complaint had been filed with evidence of fraud and false statements. Attached was a screenshot of my warning, but the amount had been changed to a smaller number, as if I lied to make Hale look worse. Under the screenshot was another image. It was my face, taken through my own office window from outside, staring at the monitor. My phone lit up before I could breathe. A new message arrived from the same unknown contact. There was no greeting, just a line of text and a short audio file. You wanted people to hear your voice, so I made sure they heard mine first. I pressed play. Hale spoke softly like he sat right beside me. He said my full name. He said my mother's full name. He said the hospice address. Then he whispered the door code I used there, the one I never wrote down. When the audio ended, another message appeared under it. I did not take only your money. I took your weak spot. Pay me back with silence or I will visit her before you do. I started calling every number tied to Marcus Hale that I could find. I did not ask for him at first. I asked for accounts payable. I asked for contract admin. I asked for anyone who handled vendor disputes. Every call ended the same way. A polite voice said Hale did not work there, or the company had restructured, or they could not confirm anything. Then the line went dead as if someone cut it on purpose. I opened his proposal deck that he had left in my room, the one he said was only a sample. I had almost thrown it away. Now it felt like a map. The last slide listed partners and distributors, real names, real phone numbers. I copied them into a list with shaking hands and began again. I left short messages. I kept my words tight. I said I was a contractor. I said I had an unpaid invoice and a reverse transfer. I said I worried about fraud. I offered to send documents. I sent emails with the invoice, the bank reversal, and the contract signature pages. I did not mention the camera. I did not mention my mother. I stayed grounded because I needed them to listen. By midday, one partner answered. A man named Paul from a logistics firm. His voice dropped as soon as he heard Hale's name. He asked if I had been pushed into arbitration. I said yes. He sighed once and told me Hale had burned 3 vendors last year, then vanished. Paul said each one had signed a contract with a different shell company. He said Hale used short projects and high urgency to make people skip due diligence. Paul did not know where Hale lived, but he said Hale always left a trail of dissolved companies behind him, like someone who never wanted to be held in one place. Paul offered one more thing. He forwarded an old complaint thread from a private vendor group. I read it fast. The names changed, but the pattern stayed the same. The same contract clause, the same promise of a large final payment, the same canceled transfer. One person wrote that Hale sent them a video of their signature being forged. Another wrote that Hale knew their family details. Most of the posts ended with silence. No update, no closure. I did not feel relief. I felt marked. I saw myself as the next line in a list of people who stopped writing. I filed complaints anyway. I sent a fraud report to his payment processor. I sent a complaint to the state business registry about the dissolved entity used in my contract. I sent a notice to 2 partners that they could be exposed if they kept his materials on their websites. Each action was small. Each one left a paper trail that did not depend on a court. I told myself I was staying careful. I told myself I was taking control. That night, my phone buzzed while I sat in the dark of my locked office. A message appeared from the unknown contact. You called Paul at 12:14. You emailed Claire at 1:52. You told yourself you were calm. I stared at the screen until my eyes hurt. My sent email timestamps matched his list exactly. I had not told anyone about Paul. I had not even said his last name out loud. I looked up at the ceiling corner where the old vent cover sat. It looked the same as always. Still, I felt watched from inside it. I went home and checked my locks twice. I placed a thin strip of clear tape across the door seam so I would know if it opened. I did not sleep. I listened to small sounds that did not fit. A soft tap in the hallway, a slow creak in the kitchen. At 2:37, the bathroom faucet turned on for 1 second, then stopped. I did not move until the silence felt thick. In the morning, the tape on my front door was broken in the center. The lock showed no marks. The door chain still hung in place, but it had been lifted and set back with care as if someone had practiced. My shoes by the wall faced the wrong direction. The drawer where I kept spare keys was open by 1 inch. Nothing obvious was taken. That felt worse. It felt like a visit, not a theft. I drove straight to the hospice and asked the front desk if anyone had asked about my mother. The clerk hesitated, then said a man had called last night. He had used my full name and said he was family. He had asked for room numbers. He had asked what time I usually came. The clerk said she did not give details, but he sounded informed. He sounded sure. As she spoke, my sister's name flashed on my phone. I answered and heard her breathing hard. She did not greet me. She asked why a man had messaged her at dawn from an unknown number with a photo of her standing outside her apartment. Then she said the part that made my mouth go dry. He wrote that I should tell you to stop making calls, or he would help you sign more papers. I called the number I found on a neighborhood directory and kept my voice low like I feared being heard. A woman answered and said hello twice before I spoke. I asked if she knew Marcus Hale. I used his full name. I said I was trying to return something he left behind at my place. I did not say bed and breakfast. I did not say invoice. I made it sound harmless. Her silence lasted long enough to feel like a decision. Then she said he lived on Cedar Ridge Lane for a short time. She said he moved often. She asked who I was. I gave my first name only and said I owned a small property where he stayed for work. I added one true thing to hook it in. I said he left without settling his bill. She made a small sound like she believed it. Then she said, careful, he had visitors late at night and people argued in his driveway. She said she never complained because he smiled too much and acted like he was doing her a favor by living there. Before she hung up, she said one more thing. She said she hoped I did not have to chase him because others tried and it never ended well. I sat with that warning and still went forward. I pulled every address tied to him and every name tied to his new companies. I wrote letters that looked official but stayed just vague enough to avoid a direct threat. I mixed proof with soft lies. I included my real invoice and bank reversal. I also wrote that his unpaid contractors were considering legal action. That part was not true yet. I wrote that his business practices could draw audits. That was a guess. I wrote that he had a pattern. That was true. I mailed them to neighbors, old roommates, and anyone whose name appeared near his in public records. I told myself I did it to protect others. I told myself I did it to find him. But I also wanted him to feel pressure where money could not protect him. I wanted him to feel watched in the safe places he used to ignore. The first response came as an email from a man who said he was a friend of Marcus. He asked for details. He sounded offended, but his questions were too specific. He wanted dates and amounts. He wanted to know if I had a contract. I replied with the exact documents I could prove. Then I added a line I had not earned. I wrote that I had seen Marcus alter documents in my office. I did not write camera or forged signature. I let the friend imagine it. When I sent it, my stomach twisted, but I did not pull it back. After that, small cracks appeared around him. A partner removed his logo from a website. A conference listing deleted his speaking slot. A local business group edited their member page and his name vanished. I learned this from careful searching, not from anyone telling me. Nothing ever said why. That was the point. Rumor did the work when proof could not. The calls started 3 days after the first letters arrived. The number changed each time. Sometimes it showed as private. I answered once because I thought it might be a partner ready to pay me just to end the noise. I held the phone to my ear and heard breathing. Slow, wet, close. No voice, no background sound. The line stayed open for almost a minute, as if the person wanted me to count each breath. I hung up and my phone rang again right away. I did not answer. It rang a third time, then a fourth. The same breathing waited in my voicemail. When I played it back, I heard something else under it, like a faint scraping sound, like a fingernail dragged across paper. I started leaving my phone face down. I started keeping it in another room. It still rang. It rang in the middle of the night and woke me with a cold jolt. Each time I listened, the breathing sounded a little closer, as if the caller stood inside my home and used the phone only as a mask. Years passed in pieces. The bed and breakfast survived, but only because I sold things I loved and stopped trusting anyone who asked for a room with privacy. I kept sending pressure when I could. New names kept appearing, then dissolving. His mask changed, but the shape stayed the same. On the 8th year after he walked out on me, I stepped outside before dawn to check the locks on the guest wing. The air was still and sharp. The driveway was empty except for one car parked near the tree line, half hidden behind a hedge. I knew that car. Dark paint, a dent above the left rear wheel, a pale sticker shadow on the back window where something had been peeled off. I had watched it pull away the morning he vanished. I stood frozen, staring at it, and I understood something that made my throat tighten. Marcus Hale had come back to my bed and breakfast. I kept a paper ledger because the bank apps made the numbers feel unreal. Ink made them hurt in a way that stayed honest. I wrote the same lines until the page filled. Roof patch, furnace service, insurance increase, chargeback fees, loan interest, late penalties. Each entry carried his shadow because that missing payment had started the fall. Even 8 years later, I still counted his debt like a ghost limb. I still felt it when I tried to stand. The bed and breakfast looked fixed from the road, but it never felt safe inside. I replaced cameras twice. I replaced locks 3 times. I stopped trusting the little signs that told other people a place was calm, like clean windows and fresh paint. Calm could be staged. I had learned that from him. Some nights I sat in the office with the security feed on and waited for something to move that should not move. My revenge had turned into a routine. I watched business filings the way other people watched weather reports. When a new company appeared with his pattern, I saved it. When it applied for permits or credit, I sent quiet warnings to the right people. When a partner posted a photo with him, I emailed the partner from a clean address and asked careful questions. I kept my words polite and my proof attached. I stayed small and controlled because large moves got ignored. Small moves got under skin. I did not tell myself I was doing justice anymore. I told myself I was doing maintenance. Like changing filters before something clogged and broke. That lie felt easier to carry. Then I saw a new filing that made my hand stop over the keyboard. A company linked to him tried to register for a state supplier program. That program fed contracts to a chain of clinics and care homes. Real money. Long money. It also required background checks, references, and an ethics statement signed under penalty. A liar could still get in, but a liar could not survive scrutiny if someone aimed it right. I found a contact email for the program compliance officer. I drafted a message and stared at it for an hour. It felt like raising my head too high. It felt like stepping into open light. But the chance was rare. If I could attach his old, dissolved entities to his new application, it could freeze his funding for months. It could make his partners run. It could hurt him in the place he used to hurt others. Before I could send it, the lobby bell rang downstairs, once soft. I froze and listened. No footsteps followed. The bell rang again as if someone tested it and stopped. I checked the cameras. The lobby feed showed empty chairs and still curtains. The outside feed showed only darkness and a thin line of road. I locked the office door from the inside and stayed still until my heartbeat slowed. Then the hallway light outside the office turned on. I had replaced that switch with a motion sensor after the first break-in. The light should have needed movement. The camera showed nothing. The light stayed on anyway, bright and steady, like a stage. I opened the office door and stepped into the hall. The air smelled damp and metallic, the same wrong smell from the unpaid room years ago. I walked toward the guest wing, checking each door. Every lock looked normal. No scratches, no broken wood, nothing forced. Room 3 stood open. I had locked it at midnight. I knew I had because I checked it twice whenever my mind started to race. Now the door sat ajar by 2 inches. The overhead light inside turned on as I approached, without a click from the switch. The chair in the center of the room rocked in a slow, steady motion. The desk lamp pointed at the same spot where my invoice had once sat. The curtain hung wrong, pulled back just enough to show the shut window. On the bed, a folded strip of black fabric lay like a placed token. It was a tie. Not mine, too long, too neat. The knot looked freshly set. I backed out and checked the other rooms. Nothing missing. Not one towel, not one pillow. Nothing stolen, only arranged, only repeated. It felt like someone replayed a night for me, frame by frame, to prove they could. I returned to the front desk with my hands numb and pulled the booking binder from the drawer. I did not use it much anymore, but I kept it for old receipts and backup. One slip had been tucked behind the last page, fresh white against yellowed paper, like it had been added minutes ago. It was a printed receipt from my own system. It showed a one-night stay paid in cash. The date was yesterday. Guest name was listed as Martin Hall. The handwriting under signature looked like mine at first glance. Then my stomach dropped as I saw the shape of the letters. It matched Marcus Hale, and the room number on the receipt was 3. I opened my booking page as soon as the sun came up. I expected one bad review from a guest who got angry about a rule. Instead, I saw a new review posted under my name, written in the first person, as if I had typed it myself. It said I watched the guests while they slept. It said I kept records of their wallets and their pills. It ended with a line that made my blood go cold. It said I had learned how to do it from Marcus Hale. The review did not come from a guest account. It came from an owner update. It sat in the section where I posted policy changes and holiday notes. It was dated at 3:14 in the morning. At 3:14 I had been in the hallway, staring at room 3 and the rocking chair. My inbox filled with messages within an hour. People asked if the review was a joke. Some asked if they should cancel. One message called me a predator. A local travel group shared a screenshot and warned others to avoid my place. I watched the damage spread in real time, like a stain in water, and I felt the same helpless anger I felt the day Hale reversed the transfer. I logged into the platform to delete it. The post was already locked by the system for investigation. The page showed an alert that the owner had edited it twice after posting. I checked the edit history. The second edit added a sentence about my mother. It said I liked hospitals because people there could not run. I stared at it until my eyes burned. I checked my computer for malware. I checked my router logs. I changed every password. Nothing explained how an owner post happened without my phone prompt. Nothing explained the edits. Then I found something worse. My email sent folder showed messages I did not remember writing. They were sent last night to 3 recent guests. The messages were short, rude, and cruel. They were signed with my name and ended with the words, "You owe me." I sat in my office chair and tried to replay the night. I remembered checking the doors. I remembered the light turning on. I remembered the receipt. I did not remember sending any emails. I did not remember being at my desk at 3:14. I looked at my hands and felt dizzy, as if time had slipped while my body stayed awake. My phone rang. I answered without thinking. Breathing filled my ear, slow and close. Then a soft click like a key turning in a lock. A man spoke one word, almost gentle. "Ledger." The call ended. I went to my file cabinet and opened the drawer where I kept the paper ledger and old tax folders. I had sealed that drawer with a strip of tape after the broken door seam. The tape sat there, smooth and unbroken. I pulled the drawer open anyway. The ledger lay inside, but the ribbon marker had been moved to a page I had not opened in months. On that page, someone had underlined 3 entries in red ink: hospice payment, hospice address update, door code change fee. I did not own a red pen. A small slip of paper sat tucked into the ledger spine. It was a photocopy of my mother's intake form. It had her full name, her room number, and the nurse station phone. I had kept the original in a sealed envelope at home, in a box under my bed. My mouth went dry as I understood what it meant. Someone had been in that box. Someone had made a copy and put it here like a bookmark. I went to my security storage next. I kept old camera backups on an external drive in a locked cabinet. I had almost thrown it out years ago when the system changed. I plugged it into my laptop and opened the oldest folder, the one from the week Hale vanished. Most files were normal. Empty hallway, empty parking lot. Then one new file sat at the bottom of the list, dated yesterday, but placed inside the old folder as if it belonged there. The file name was a time stamp from 8 years ago. I clicked it and watched grainy footage of the unpaid room from a camera angle I never knew existed. It looked down from high in the corner, above the door, a place my old system could not reach. In the video, Marcus Hale stood alone in the room. He smiled at the wall as if he saw someone watching him. He lifted my invoice and pressed it flat with his palm. Then he reached into his coat and took out a small object wrapped in black fabric. He did not leave it on the table. He knelt by the vent under the window and slid the object inside with 2 fingers, careful and slow. Then he tapped the vent cover 3 times like a signal and walked out. Before he closed the door, he turned back and looked straight into the hidden camera. His lips moved without sound, but I understood him anyway. He had left something for me to find. I kept the old video on my laptop and watched it until the pixels burned into my eyes. I had replayed the moment Marcus Hale knelt by the vent so many times that my body began to copy him. My shoulders tightened the same way. My fingers twitched as if they wanted to reach into metal and pull out what he hid. I did not sleep without hearing his 3 taps in my head. Months passed and my revenge tightened like a habit I could not break. I sent packages to compliance offices. I sent reports to lenders. I sent short warnings to partners that still used his name. I did not threaten. I did not beg. I only placed facts in front of people who could hurt him by doing nothing at all. Every time I hit send, my skin warmed as if someone leaned close to my neck. It started working in ways I could measure. His new supplier application got paused for review. A clinic chain removed his company from a vendor list. A small article appeared online about a local businessman accused of contract fraud. They did not print his photo, but they printed his initials and the city where he operated. I saw his pattern in the details and knew it was him. 2 days later, the article vanished behind a legal warning, but it had already been shared. I learned his circle was shrinking. A former partner posted a public apology to clients and said he had cut ties with a dishonest consultant. Hale's name did not appear, but the comments did the work. People asked, "Is this about Marcus?" The partner never answered. He did not have to. Silence became a blade. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I felt pulled forward as if stopping would let him step out of the dark. When I tried to take a day off from it, my phone rang with the breathing again. If I ignored it, the breathing appeared in voicemails from numbers that should not have existed. When I blocked those numbers, new ones took their place. I began to think it was not one person calling. It felt like the calls came from the work itself, like the revenge had grown its own mouth. I started feeling followed even in bright places. In a grocery parking lot, I sensed a car idling behind me, but when I turned, the space was empty. On the road home, my rearview mirror showed headlights that stayed the same distance for miles, then vanished the moment I reached my driveway. My body reacted before my mind did. My palms went wet. My throat closed. The air smelled faintly metallic, like a coin held too long in a warm hand. One evening, while I sat at my desk and tried to draft a final complaint packet, my office phone rang. That line was not listed anywhere. I used it only for old bookings. I answered and heard a woman's voice on the other end, tense and polite. "Hello," she said. "You called me about Marcus Hale. Can you repeat what you said? I could not hear you well." I told her I had not called her. She said, "Yes, you did 5 minutes ago." She sounded annoyed now. I asked what number had called her. She read my office line back to me. Then she said something that made my stomach turn. She said the caller sounded exactly like me. I heard a click like someone pressed a button. My own voice came through her speaker, clear and close, repeating words I did not remember saying. It used her name. It said her address out loud. It said she had a nice porch light and it would be a shame if it went out. I stood up so fast my chair fell. I grabbed the phone tighter and told her to hang up. She did not. She whispered, "Who are you?" My own voice kept talking over the line, calm, firm, and pleased like it had practiced. The call ended by itself. I stared at my phone and felt heat spread across my face, like shame and fever mixed together. I understood what Hale had been building. He had not only tried to ruin my business, he had tried to turn me into the kind of person people needed to fear. 2 days later, a man arrived at the bed and breakfast while I stood behind the front desk. He wore a plain jacket and carried a thick envelope. He asked for me by full name. He did not smile. He handed me the envelope and told me I had been served. Inside was a legal notice from an attorney in another state. It accused me of harassment, defamation, and interference with business relationships. It listed companies I had contacted and dates I had sent messages. It included copies of emails I had never written, full of threats in my voice. At the bottom was a request for an emergency court order. If it was granted, I would have to shut down operations until the hearing. On the last page, One line was underlined in bold ink. The plaintiff intended to seek access to all security footage and guest records from the defendant's property. The notice meant Hale wanted my cameras and my guest records. If he got them, he could cut and paste my life into any shape he wanted. I could not wait for court. I could not trust emails anymore. I needed something that could not be edited into a lie. I searched the attorney letterhead until I found an office address and a suite number. I also found a hearing date set 2 weeks out. Hale had moved fast. I moved faster. I printed a response packet that looked real enough to pass at a front desk. I wore a plain jacket and carried a cardboard folder like a courier. I told myself it was only a look. I told myself I would not do anything illegal. Then I remembered the broken tape on my door and the rocking chair, and I stopped pretending. The building was quiet and clean, with cameras in every corner. I kept my eyes forward and my steps steady. The receptionist barely looked up when I said I had time-sensitive documents for the Hale matter. She pointed toward a hallway and told me to leave it in a drop box near records. The drop box sat beside a door labeled File Storage. A keypad glowed green as if it had been used recently. I heard voices deeper in the hall. I felt heat rise behind my ears. I should have turned around. Instead, I tried the storage door handle. It opened. Cold air spilled out. The lights inside were already on. Rows of gray cabinets stood like tall bodies in a narrow room. The door eased shut behind me with a soft click. I reached back to keep it from closing, but it was already closed. I tried the handle. Locked. I did not hear a bolt slide. It simply became locked as if the room decided it was time. My throat tightened and I pressed my ear to the door. The hallway sounded empty. No footsteps, no voices, only the distant hum of vents. I forced myself to move. The cabinets had small labels, case files, vendor disputes, arbitration exhibits. Then I saw a name written on a tab in black marker. It was mine. My hands shook as I pulled the drawer open. Inside was a thick folder with photos of my office, and my mother at the hospice entrance. There were screenshots of my bank app and my booking page. There were copies of emails I had never sent, printed like trophies. At the bottom sat a spreadsheet titled Selection Notes. I read the first lines and my stomach turned. It listed names with columns beside them: debt level, family illness, fear of police, need for cash, social isolation. It even had a column called pressure point and another called response time. My name had a score next to it, high. Under it someone had typed caregiver, will comply if threatened, will lash out if shamed, good for long game. I covered my mouth so I did not make a sound. Hale had not found me by chance. He had hunted people like me on purpose. A noise cut through the room. The storage door handle moved once slow. Then it moved again, faster, like someone tried twice. The keypad beeped outside. A male voice spoke close to the door. It was calm, amused. "He came for it," the voice said. Another voice answered, lower, nervous. "Should I call security?" "Not yet," Hale said. "Let him find what he needs, then we close it." My knees went weak. I backed away from the door and moved deeper into the rows. At the far wall I saw a small interior door with no label. It had a simple knob, no keypad. I tried it. It opened into a narrow passage that led to another records room. I slipped inside and pulled the door shut. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would carry through the walls. I tried the knob again. Locked. Again I had not heard a lock. The door simply became locked behind me like the first one. The air smelled metallic and damp. The lights overhead flickered once, then steadied. I saw a desk with a laptop dock and a stack of thumb drives in a tray. One drive had a strip of black tape around it. 3 small tap marks were pressed into the tape, like dents made by a fingernail. I took it and held it tight. A note lay under the tray, typed and signed. Voice model backup. Original source audio, do not lose. Footsteps sounded beyond the wall, approaching fast. A shadow moved under the door gap. Someone stopped on the other side, close enough that I could hear breathing. Then Hale's voice came through, soft and pleased. "I knew you would open the right door twice." I looked down at the drive in my hand and understood what it was. It was the tool he used to speak as me, and it was the one thing that could ruin him forever. I did not leave the office building the normal way. I waited until the footsteps moved off, then I pushed open a fire door that should have sounded an alarm, but it did not. I ran down a stairwell that smelled like old dust and cold metal. I kept the black tape drive in my fist so tight my fingers ached. I expected a hand on my shoulder at every landing. No one touched me. That felt planned too. In my car, I did not plug the drive in. I did not trust any device I owned. I drove to a copy shop on the edge of town that rented computers by the hour. I paid cash. I sat in a corner where the security camera could not see the screen. Then I opened the drive. It held folders of audio files, training clips, and labeled outputs. Some clips were my voice from phone calls I remembered making. Some were from calls I did not remember at all. One file was Hale speaking, calm and clear, giving instructions to someone. He explained how he chose targets. He explained how he pressured them. He laughed once and said people did not need a cage if you could make their own name into a weapon. I could have stopped there and taken it to a lawyer. I could have tried to be clean. But I had already been dragged through filth for years, and my hands had begun to match it. I felt it in my chest like a hot stone. I made copies. I uploaded the key files to 3 places using new accounts. I sent one set to the compliance officer who had paused Hale's supplier application. I sent another set to a lender that had funded his last company. I sent another set to a journalist who had written the article that vanished. I wrote a short note each time. I told them to listen to the file where Hale described the voice model. I told them to compare it to the threatening emails in the lawsuit. Then I crossed the line I had promised myself I would never cross. I sent the files to every partner and distributor I had ever connected to his name. I did not ask questions. I did not warn them quietly. I did not protect their feelings. I attached the selection spreadsheet and highlighted the column that said family illness. I wanted them to see what he did to people who could not fight back. I wanted them to feel sick. When the first replies came in, my body shook like I had stepped into cold water. Some messages were short and angry. Some were terrified. One partner asked if I was safe. Another asked if Hale would come after them now. I watched the chain begin, not like justice but like falling glass. Within hours, the lender called my business line. A man spoke in a clipped voice and asked how I got the files. I said they came from Hale's own records. He asked if I could swear to that. I said yes. My throat tightened as I lied. I could not swear to it in a way that would survive court. Still, I said it because I needed the machine to move. The journalist replied next. She said the audio sounded real. She said her editor would want more proof. I sent her the clip where Hale spoke about making a victim sound like they threatened people. I told her to call the woman who had heard my voice on a call I never placed. I had saved that number. I had never used it before because it felt like pulling an innocent person into my war. I sent it anyway. By evening, Hale's new company site went offline. His public profile pages disappeared one by one. A partner posted a statement about cutting ties due to evidence of fraud and harassment. People began to share screenshots again, but this time the screenshots carried sound. The comments filled with questions and fear. Some people wrote that they had been hit too and never knew how. I should have felt like I won. I did not. The room around me felt too small. Every time my phone buzzed, my skin crawled as if something walked under it. At midnight, my office phone rang. I watched it ring without touching it, then it stopped. It rang again. When I finally answered, I heard my own voice. I sounded tired. I sounded honest. I said, "Please stop. He will punish us." I dropped the receiver like it burned. The line stayed open and the breathing started, slow and close. Then Hale spoke over it, soft and amused. "No more warnings," he said. "Now we counted costs." I drove back to the inn with my headlights off for the last stretch, as if darkness could hide me. The building stood quiet. No cars in the lot, no lights in the windows, yet the front door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled damp and metallic again. The hallway light turned on by itself as I stepped forward. I walked to the guest wing and stopped at room 3. The door stood open. The bed was made with fresh sheets I had not put on. A glass of water sat on the nightstand. A black tie lay folded in the center of the pillow. On the desk, a registration card waited with a name written in neat block letters. Marcus Hale. And under arrival time, someone had written tonight. I stood in the doorway of room 3 and did not step inside. The air in there felt used, like someone had waited in it. The water on the nightstand had no dust. The tie looked freshly folded. The registration card sat perfectly straight, like a joke told with care. I checked the window. It stayed locked. I checked the closet. It stayed empty. I checked under the bed with my phone light and saw nothing except clean floor and one dark mark, like a shoe print that had been wiped too late. The desk drawer slid open when I touched it. I had not locked it because there was nothing inside before. Now a burner phone sat there with the screen lit. A timer counted down from 30 seconds. Next to it sat a small envelope with my name on it in block letters. I grabbed the envelope and backed out into the hall. I did not touch the phone again. I heard a faint click from inside the room, like the phone started recording on its own. I tore the envelope open in the hallway. It held a single folded sheet and a hotel-style key card from another property. The sheet said, in neat printed letters, "You like paper TRAILS. Here is one that leads back to you." Under that line was a list of dates and names. They were the same partners I had contacted. Beside each name was a note that made it look like I had demanded money. It looked like blackmail. At the bottom was my signature again, perfect and false. I took the sheet straight to my lawyer in the morning. I did not ask if it was bad. I watched her face change as she read it. Then I showed her the voice model files and the selection spreadsheet. I told her about the storage room and Hale's voice on the other side of the door. I told her about the owner post that was not mine. For the first time in years, I saw someone believe me without needing to be convinced. She acted fast. She contacted the journalist and the compliance officer herself, from her own accounts, with chain of custody notes and sworn statements. She filed an emergency response to the court to block Hale's request for my guest records. She included the audio where Hale explained how he made victims sound like criminals. She called it a pattern of coercion and impersonation. She said the lawsuit was part of the abuse. The consequences landed like heavy doors slamming one after another. The lender froze Hale's accounts pending investigation. 2 partners issued public statements that they had been misled and would cooperate with authorities. The supplier program disqualified his company and flagged linked entities. The journalist published a new piece with multiple victims, named sources, and a clip of Hale's own voice describing the selection notes. This time it did not vanish. Other outlets picked it up within hours, because the story had sound and documents and witnesses. People came forward that I had never met. One woman said Hale had threatened her child's school. One man said Hale had sent him a video of his forged signature. Another said Hale had used a voice clip to make it sound like he confessed to theft. They all described the same feeling, not just being cheated, being played with. By the end of the week, Hale's last public-facing company shut its doors. A notice appeared on the building entrance, printed and taped there by someone tired of him. It said closed due to legal matter. Online, his name turned poisonous. Old reviews got rewritten. Old praise got replaced with warnings. He could not hide behind new logos anymore. People posted his face, his aliases, and the list of dissolved companies. He lost the one thing he always kept: control of the story. I told myself I had won when I saw his attorney withdraw from the case. I told myself I had won when the court denied his emergency order. I told myself I had won when my in-booking page stopped bleeding cancellations and began to recover. The numbers improved. The debt line eased. The ledger pages stopped looking like a death list. Still, the betrayal feeling did not leave. It settled deeper, like a stain that did not care about soap. On the 10th night after the article, my office phone rang at 3:14 in the morning. I watched the screen light up. The caller ID showed my own number. I did not answer. The voicemail came anyway. When I played it back, I heard my own voice speaking with my exact pauses, my exact breath. I said I was sorry for what I did. I said I had made it all up. I said I had ruined an innocent man because I was broke and angry. Then my voice laughed, soft and pleased, like someone wearing my mouth as a mask. I went to room 3 with a flashlight and my heart hammering. The door stood closed. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The chair in the center rocked in a slow, steady motion. The bed stayed made. The tie stayed folded on the pillow like a signature. On the desk, the registration card had changed. The guest name line still read Marcus Hale. But the signature at the bottom was mine.